I did it, but I also didn't do it. Let's get into that. I'm Devin, your friendly neighborhood board gamer, and this is Devin Talks Tabletop, a YouTube series where the games are made up and what I say doesn't matter, and I'm glad that you're here even though what I say doesn't matter. And what I mean by I did it but I didn't do it is I bought Marvel United. I bought Marvel United, and I got it not through CMON. I got it, well, maybe indirectly through CMON because it's from them as a publisher, as a company. I got it on Amazon. My main critique for this game, and I've talked about this with Alex on his channel a couple times, and I've played through this base game with my son. I've played through against all three of the bad guys, Red Skull, Ultron, Taskmaster, and it kind of got to the point where I said, okay, it wasn't my copy. I borrowed it from Kidsplaining, and I said, I don't need this game. I like what this game offers, but I don't need this game at this level because there's only 3 villains. And at 3 villains, there's just not enough there for me to feel like I wanted to keep it. It's a game that I think is very good to introduce people to cooperation and certain board game mechanics. I think it's great as an accessible entry title. And I think it's at the right complexity level for a lot of people that are getting into the hobby. But for my collection, I was like, I've played through it with my son. I don't think he's going to want to go up against Ultron and Red Skull and Taskmaster again because we've already done it. And my issue with this game was that I wanted it to have more than what it had in the base game, but I also didn't find it enough to justify going all the way in. And I really wanted to. Specifically for the Marvel United X-Men campaign, which, spoiler, I've got that too, because on Amazon, they had this package, which was Marvel United plus Enter the Spider-Verse, which is probably still to this day my favorite Marvel movie and one of my favorite superheroes, period. And it also had this Doctor Strange mini. So this was all $30, which I thought was pretty good because this used to be as a base at Walmart just like $30. And it was at some places, at some local game stores, it was even more expensive than that. So in order to get the base game, the Spider-Man expansion, and then this Doctor Strange one for $30, I thought that was pretty good. And then they went out and they gave this X-Men one on Amazon for just $20. And so I really wanted to not do it. I wanted to stick to my guns, but I was like, for $50, I could get the base game, an additional base game with X-Men that I really enjoy, X-Men, and I could get Spider-Man, and I'd have more villains, and I'd have more heroes. The heroes are less meaningful because they really only have a few differences in the cards that they have. The villains are the things that make this game unique because they're a different puzzle that you have to go into. But I decided to jump into it, and I'm not unhappy about it because Marvel United has the core way to play. And then Enter the Spider-Verse has an additional villain, several more heroes, and Miles Morales, which I am excited about. But then it also has, where is it? It's got a new mode. Yeah, it's got challenge mode, so it's got an additional way to play. And then with the X-Men, 2 unique things that are going on here. You have antagonists, which are like Magneto and Mystique, they're anti-heroes. And so they can kind of split this way between both villains and heroes. And then you have 2 just straight up villains, which are Sabretooth and Juggernaut. Oh, spelling error. They said Juggernaut on the back of this box. That's hilarious. Just feel like that should have been seen. And then they've got all of these heroes. You've got Storm, Wolverine, Beast, Jean Grey, Cyclops, Professor X. And let's see, is there a unique mode that comes with this? Maybe not. We'll see. But it's got a lot more content, so I'm excited about this. If you are not familiar at all with Marvel United, it is a cooperative game in which there is a main villain that's got a particular style of aggression against the heroes. They advance threat, and they spawn bad guys, and they endanger civilians, all on this circular board of locations that players then have to go to those boards. They have to defeat the lesser thugs. They have to rescue the civilians. And they have to progressively knock down 3 different objectives that enable them to confront the main bad guy. Every time they get one of those objectives, it gets them closer to winning, but it also advances the end game by making the villain activate more frequently. So you've got, I'm not going to punch these out right now, but you've got all these punch boards. And then, as I mentioned, you've got the heroes and you've got the main bad guys. I'm familiar with this copy because I've played the base game before. And I do love the miniatures for this. This is the kind of thing where if I collected all of them, I would love to have them painted because I think they're very paintable. But you've got your locations that you spread out in kind of a circle, and then you have your bad guys that go in the center space and their villain dashboard that you have with the different objectives underneath them and the character card above it. And then the main function of this game is it's a card game. You've got this card game here where your hero deck has different abilities, which are as simple as move, damage, and special. I think those are the only 3. No, move, damage. It's move, damage, like a special activation, and then a wild one, which can be all 3 of those. And then you have the villain decks, which are specific to each villain. So, really excited now that I've got all this extra stuff to kind of see how I feel about it a little bit late. Where'd that go? Oh, it's underneath me. Now that I've got extra content, I'm curious how my opinion of this will either shift or continue to be the same, because I've got the base game here, and then the other thing I'm excited about is just mixing in the characters. And I'm uncertain if you can just straight up mix in the X-Men with the regular ones. I kind of hope you can, to where it's a larger... I feel like that had to have been the larger selling point, because when they did the X-Men campaign, they did a reprint of the Marvel United campaign. They redid that to where you could, I think, get it again if you missed out the first time. So there was the potential that you could get all of X-Men and all of Marvel United base. And I think that was, yeah. So you got the extra content here. You got Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and Ghost Spider. Ghost Spider, who I think... Ghost Spider and Miles Morales have just a much better look than base Spider-Man. They just do. They look so much cooler. So I'm certainly excited to check this out. Also, it came with a promo of Doctor Strange, which is nice because it's going to have his cards in here and it's going to have his miniature in here. Thematically, he doesn't really fit, though I guess he does because he just did the recent movie with Spider-Man. So maybe that's how he narratively fits in there. But also just excited for the X-Men here because I've always enjoyed the X-Men movies. I like mutants. I think that's a cool part of the comic world. Super excited to see if this brings any additional gameplay styles, like the challenge mode that's in the Enter the Spider-Man, or if it's really just the same mold, but with X-Men. So, you've got the same icons here. You've got all the same tokens there. I do like the fact that this adds in the anti-heroes is nice. And they have a really good visual distinction that they're doing. You've got anti-heroes, you've got villains, and then you've got heroes here. And I think that they do a good job. Everything about this screams accessibility as a game. And I think it does a really good job of... Is that there and that's there? I think so, yeah. Does a really good job of being something that people who don't normally play board games could easily jump into. And it's really just not that overwhelming in terms of the content and in terms of the main gameplay loop that you do, where you use your card and you use the card of the preceding player. I think it's definitely going to satisfy some people who maybe haven't been in the hobby yet. Optimistic that this will be enough without being all of it, which is, I want all of it. I don't have enough room for all of it. I don't know how anybody has enough room for a full pledge like that. I say that knowing full well that I did get a full pledge for 6 Siege, so I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But there's so much content there. I may at some point rebox this myself to where it fits mostly into just one box. We'll see how that goes. Timestamp. All right, so that's Marvel United. I'm jumping into it, even though I said I wasn't going to jump into it, because I was able to get a decent amount of it for not a lot. I think the core box, the X-Men core box, the Spider-Man box, and that little miniature for $50, I think that's pretty good. I'm not unhappy with it. Timestamp.